Amina reached the airport before dawn, when the glass doors still held the night school and the floor shone like a calm lake. She liked this time. Fewer people, softer voices, no rush that pushed people into unkindness. She wore a simple cotton kurta and comfortable shoes. Her tote bag carried a paperback novel with a bent corner, a scarf in case the cabin air felt too cold, and a small box of dates she planned to share with the crew if the mood felt right. In her phone wallet rested a first-class boarding pass for Falcon Air, flight to London, seat 2A. She could have called the VIP service. She could have asked someone to meet her at the curb, carry her bag, and walk her through a private lane. She did not. She liked moving through the same doors as everyone else. It reminded her that travel is not only about comfort. It is also about patience, the way strangers share space and make room for each other's stories for a few hours in the sky. She sent a quick message to her husband, Adil, at the airport. "All good. See you Friday." He replied with a heart and a plane emoji. Nothing more. That was their way, quiet, steady, no fuss. Check-in took 5 minutes. The agent smiled at her pass and said, "You're in 2A, ma'am." Window. "Very nice seat." Amina smiled back and thanked her. The agent offered to mark her bag as priority, but Amina kept it with her. It felt safer to keep the book and the dates close. She passed security, took off her shoes, put them back on, and picked up her tote at the end of the belt. A guard nodded as he returned her phone. Everything was smooth, like a well-practiced song. At the gate, a few passengers were scattered across the seats, each person in a small bubble of thoughts. A child leaned against a suitcase and slept. A businessman tapped a laptop with a look of worry. A young couple took a selfie with the airplane visible through the large window. The aircraft's tail wore the gold and blue Falcon logo that Amina had seen 100 times, on brochures and reports and the corner of Adil's home office screen at night. Most people did not know who owned Falcon Air. They did not need to. A good airline was like a good road, safe, reliable, and there for everyone. Amina bought a cup of tea from a nearby counter. She held it in both hands and watched the light grow outside. She liked the quiet before a long flight. She liked opening her book to the page where a small leaf had slipped in as a bookmark during a walk the day before. Her phone buzzed. It was a short message from her mother, a simple blessing for safe travel. Amina replied with a smile and promised to call once she landed. Boarding began with an announcement in both languages and the familiar chime. Families with small children first. Then passengers with special needs. Then first class and business class. Amina waited for the line to move, then joined it. A gate agent scanned her pass and said, "Enjoy your flight, ma'am." The beep was clean and clear. Amina thanked her, walked down the jet bridge, and entered the cabin where soft lighting made everything feel gentler. First class looked like a small, quiet lounge. The seats were more like little rooms, with curved walls and a window wide enough to frame the clouds later. A flight attendant with kind eyes greeted her. The name pin read Neha. She guided Amina to seat 2A. "If you'd like, I can bring you some water, juice, or mint lemonade," Neha said. Amina asked for water. She placed her tote neatly under the footwell, set her book on the side table, and took a slow breath. The cabin smelled faintly of lemon and new fabric. As she buckled in, a supervisor in a crisp jacket entered the first-class area, holding a small tablet. He had a tidy haircut and the careful walk of someone new to a big job. He looked at each seat, then at the screen, then back at the seats, as if something did not match. When his eyes reached 2A, they stayed for a second. He checked the tablet again. Then he approached with a polite smile that did not fully reach his eyes. "Ma'am," he said, "may I see your boarding pass once more? There seems to be a small discrepancy." Amina handed it to him without worry. Mistakes happen. He examined the pass, scanned it with his device, and frowned slightly. "Would you mind stepping out with me for a moment? I'd like to re-verify at the door. It will take only a minute." Neha opened her mouth as if to speak, then stayed silent. Amina noticed the pause but kept her face calm. She collected her book and tote. The supervisor moved gently to the side to let her pass. It did not feel like a sharp question. It felt like a soft wall that still blocked the way. At the door, the supervisor stood near the galley and spoke in a lower voice. "Our system shows a flag on seat 2A. It could be a duplicate booking. We're going to do a quick audit." He looked at her clothes, her tote, the dog-eared book. "In the meantime, could you please wait in the economy cabin? We will bring you back as soon as it's cleared." Amina blinked, surprised. "I have my pass," she said gently. "I checked in already." Yes, of course," he replied, keeping the same polite tone. "This is only to avoid delay. It's procedural. We're asking a few passengers. Thank you for your cooperation." The words were smooth, but the feeling was not. People were walking around them. The line behind grew a little longer. A few faces turned. Amina thought of the tea, the book, the quiet morning, and how swiftly a day could change. She could have insisted. She could have asked for a manager or used a certain name that would cause the air to shift. Instead, she looked at the supervisor and said, "All right. I will wait." Her voice stayed even. Her steps were steady. Neha's eyes followed her as she moved down the aisle. The economy cabin already held the warm hum of many voices and many plans. Amina took an empty window seat near the back while people filled around her with bags, jackets, and the soft sounds of seat belts clicking. A young woman sat beside her, hands tied around her phone. She looked like a first-time flyer. "Is this your first flight?" Amina asked with a gentle smile. "Yes," the young woman said, laughing in a nervous way. "I'm visiting my sister. My ears, people say they might hurt." "They might pop a little," Amina said, reaching for her tote. She opened the small box of dates and offered one. "Chewing helps. Or gum?" "I have some." The young woman smiled and took a date. The sugar seemed to help her relax. A flight attendant in economy checked overhead bins and helped an older man fit his bag. A baby on the other side started to cry, then settled as his mother rocked him softly. The aircraft felt like a small city now, each row a small street with its own quiet stories. Neha appeared at the curtain between cabins. She stepped through and walked politely toward Amina. "Ma'am," she said in a low voice, "I asked the purser to check your seat. There must be a simple error. May I see your pass?" Amina gave it to her. Neha scanned it with a small device and nodded. "It reads correctly here. I will try again with the supervisor." "Thank you," Amina said. "Please don't get in trouble." "I can wait." "You won't be left here," Neha replied. The words were firm, but her face stayed kind. She went back through the curtain. Amina took out her phone and typed a message to Adil. She told him there was a seat issue but that she was fine. "Please don't call anyone," she added. "Let them solve it their way." She put the phone face down and breathed slowly, counting to 4 on each inhale and exhale the way she did when a day needed extra patience. The supervisor returned once more, this time with his tablet held close to his chest like a shield. "We're still checking," he said. "It seems the system shows your seat under a different profile. It happens sometimes. Nothing to worry about." His tone tried to be light, but there was a thin line of tension in it. He did not ask to see her documents again. He did not look at Neha. He said they would return when ready, and left. The aircraft door closed with a soft thud. The captain's voice came over the speakers, calm and clear, welcoming everyone, telling them to expect a smooth flight and light winds. Safety instructions began. Amina watched as the crew demonstrated the belt, the mask, the vest. She knew the steps by heart, but she watched to honor the work and the practice that keeps people safe. The young woman beside her whispered, "Will we be okay?" Amina nodded. "We will," she said. "You are brave for taking your first flight. You will land and see your sister. Think of that." The young woman smiled, her shoulders loosening a little. A man across the aisle glanced at Amina's pass, which still lay on her lap, and then at the front curtain. His look was curious but not unkind. People notice. People guess. But the human heart often hopes for fairness more than for gossip. Amina met his eye and gave a small smile. He returned it and went back to adjusting his seat. The plane began to push back from the gate, then stopped. The captain spoke again, saying there would be a short return to the gate due to a technical check. A soft ripple of sound went through the cabin. A woman pressed her palms together in a quiet prayer. A father distracted his child with a finger game. Amina sat still, feeling the change in rhythm. Sometimes life pauses in one place to fix a small thing that would grow worse in the air. She tapped her phone against her palm, not to send a message, but to mark the moment to remember later. She wondered if the audit would end here, before wheels left the ground, or somewhere far above, when clouds were the only borders. Neha brushed the curtain and stepped out again, her gaze seeking Amina. She moved with purpose, but her steps were soft. She crouched slightly to speak without drawing attention. "We're working on it," she said. "I know that isn't much to hear. But I don't want you to feel alone." "I don't," Amina said. "You are here." Her voice held no blame. It held a simple truth. She opened the book to the page with the leaf and read a line twice without really seeing it. Then she closed the book and listened to the small life of the cabin, the clink of a buckle, the hush of air through vents, the murmur of people telling each other small, brave lies like "it will be fine," until the words became true. The supervisor walked past once more, speaking to a colleague in a low tone with careful words like protocol, audit, and flag. He did not look down the aisle. He did not look back. Amina watched him go, then watched Neha take a breath and turn toward the front. A moment later, the station manager appeared at the door, wearing a reflective vest and a focused expression, as if he had been called from the ground to answer a question that could not wait. He spoke to the supervisor with a voice too low to hear. Amina did not stand. She did not lift her phone. She sat with her hands folded on the book and thought of the calm before dawn, the tea in her hands, the promise of patience she had made to herself when the day began. Outside the window, the morning had fully arrived. The plane waited, the people waited, and in seat 22F a quiet woman waited too, knowing that sometimes the first act of a long story is a test of how gently you can move when someone mistakes you for less than you are. The short return to the gate made the cabin feel like a held breath. People checked watches and shook their heads. One man opened the in-flight magazine and turned pages without seeing them. Amina stayed still. She watched the thin line of light along the window shade and thought of how small things decide the shape of a day. The young woman beside her, the first-time flyer, leaned closer and whispered, "Do returns like this take long?" Amina answered gently, "Sometimes a few minutes. The crew will make it safe and simple." She tried to set a calm rhythm in her voice, like a steady drum that helps others walk. Neha returned from the front with her small device and a notepad. She had written times, names, and steps in neat letters, as if the act of writing could keep events from slipping into confusion. She asked Amina for her booking reference, the last 4 digits of the card used, and the email address that held the e-ticket. Amina read the details softly. Neha nodded, thanked her, and said, "Everything matches. I will speak with the purser again." The young woman watched Neha go and said, "She seems kind." Amina smiled. "She is." The supervisor stood at the front, half turned to the aisle, his tablet cradled in one arm. He spoke to the purser in careful sentences with words like consistency, precedent, and protocol. It sounded as if he wanted to build a wall out of rules. The purser, a calm woman with silver at her temples, listened without rushing. She glanced toward the back, saw Amina, then looked back to the supervisor with a face that said, "We can be fair and fast." The supervisor tapped the tablet. The motion looked like a small stamp of a small seal. Amina took out her phone and opened the booking email again. It was all there, the booking number, the clear line first class, C2A, the charge confirmation. She took a screenshot and saved it in a folder she named Trip London. She did not plan to show it yet, Neha already had copies. She saved it for herself. Sometimes evidence is a comfort. It says, "You are not imagining this. You have the facts." She added a note with the time the supervisor moved her. She wrote the words simply, "Moved to economy for audit." She kept her handwriting plain even when it was only on a screen. Around them, the cabin life went on. A father counted the crayons in a box to make sure the set was complete. A student whispered lines for a presentation in London, pretending to read a script when it was only a note on his phone. A soft laugh lifted from one row and fell again like a sheet. In a way, Amina felt at home in this small city of strangers. She liked how travel placed many lives side by side and asked them to share air, share time, share patience. Neha appeared again, this time with the purser. The purser bent slightly so her eyes were level with Amina's. "Ma'am," she said in a voice meant for one person, not a whole cabin, "I am sorry for the confusion. I can see your documents. I believe there is an error in a seat map that is not your fault. We are sorting it. If I had my way, I would walk you back now. But I must align with the ground team, or it creates a new delay." Amina nodded. "I understand. Thank you for speaking to me directly." The purser's shoulders loosened. It is a relief when people meet you where you are. The supervisor stepped near the curtain as if a quiet call had pulled him back. He did not come down the aisle. He spoke to the purser, and the words floated just far enough for Amina to catch random audit, security sampling, and avoid exceptions. The purser closed her notepad, faced him with calm eyes, and said, "We verify with documents. We do not guess with eyes." It was firm but not sharp. The supervisor looked uneasy, as if he had expected the script to run one way and now it had lines he did not know. The captain announced that engineers would step in for a quick check. The door opened, 2 ground technicians came aboard, focused and quiet. One passed the galley and went to the cockpit. A station manager in a reflective vest followed them in. He had the watchful look of someone who makes many small decisions every hour. He spoke with the purser, who pointed down the aisle toward Amina, then toward the supervisor at the front. The manager nodded, took out his phone, and stepped to the side to make a call. Amina felt the push and pull inside herself. One path was easy: send another message to Adil and ask him to step in. With one call, the air could change, the curtain could open, and a nicer seat would be hers again. But she had promised herself to travel like anyone else. If help came, it should come because a system worked, not because a name worked. She looked at her hands and chose again to wait. Choosing once is easy. Choosing again, when time stretches, is the true test. The young woman beside her tried the gum Amina had offered and made a face that made them both smile. The small humor softened the edges of the moment. "Thank you for talking to me," the young woman said. "I feel less scared when you speak." Amina nodded. "Sometimes it helps to make room for a calm voice. You can borrow mine for a while." She did not say it to be wise. She said it because she believed it, and the words came out simple and true. A man across the aisle raised a hand politely. "Excuse me, miss," he said to Neha as she passed. "That lady has a first-class pass. I saw it. If it helps, I can confirm." He spoke with the honest courage of a person who does not enjoy conflict but enjoys fairness more. Neha thanked him. "Your kindness helps the cabin feel safe," she said. He nodded and returned to his magazine, now actually reading. The station manager finished his call and came down the aisle, stopping at Amina's row. He introduced himself, used his name, and offered his card without a heavy gesture. "Ma'am," he said, "I'm here to understand, not to argue. May I see the documents you have?" Amina showed him the e-ticket, the charge confirmation, and the screenshot. He asked careful questions, not to trap her but to build a clear picture. Did anyone explain what the flag is? Did they ask for identity only once? Did they record your details? Amina answered with the times and words she had written earlier. The manager made notes and thanked her for her patience. He spoke briefly with the purser, then with Neha, and finally with the supervisor. The conversations were quiet but clear. The supervisor's shoulders tightened. He said consistency again, but the word fell softer, as if he was hearing its limits. The manager asked a simple question that opened a door: what step confirms her status with documents? The supervisor hesitated. We already scanned," he said. "Then accepted," the manager replied. "We do not unsettle paying guests without proof. We do not block staff who try to verify." He did not raise his voice, he raised the standard. Even with this progress, the plane could not move yet. The engineers finished their check. A signature was needed, a form to scan, a number to enter. Amina used the pause to stretch her ankles and roll her shoulders. She kept a small routine for long flights to prevent stiffness. It reminded her that her body had needs that were easy to meet when she listened early. She thought again of her seat in 2A, the space to lie flat, the chance to sleep before a long day in London. It was about comfort, yes, but also about arriving with energy to help a friend whose baby had just come home from the hospital. This quiet detail, known only to her, gave the waiting a deeper weight. She did not share it, she simply held it close. Neha brought small bottles of water through the cabin and placed one in Amina's hands with a quiet, "For now." Amina thanked her and watched Neha move onward, caring for others without showing strain. The best service is often invisible. It feels like the air necessary, everywhere, and easy to forget until it is gone. One row ahead, a traveler made a small comment under his breath about people trying their luck. The words were not loud, but they carried. Amina looked down and let the comment pass like a cloud. The man across the aisle shifted, then chose to say nothing. Sometimes silence is also a choice for peace. The young woman beside Amina touched her phone and whispered, "Some people do not know the full story." Amina smiled. "Most of us do not. That is why we practice kindness." The manager returned with a new calm in his posture. "We are aligning steps," he said to Amina. "I appreciate your patience. I cannot yet move you forward, but I can promise this: no more delays caused by this confusion. The engineers are finishing, we will depart shortly." It was not the perfect answer, but it was an honest one. Amina nodded. Honest answers are stronger than fast ones. The purser came to the row and knelt again, so her eyes were level with Amina's. "When we are airborne and the seat belt sign is off," she said, "I will come back. If you are still here, I will bring you forward then. If the ground team clears you before pushback, we will do it now. Either way, I will not forget." It was not a promise of power, it was a promise of attention. Amina felt the difference. The supervisor watched from the front. He had started the day wanting to do well, to keep his team safe by following the rules he knew. Somewhere, he had stepped from caution into assumption. He did not look proud now. He looked like a person who had run with a script and was learning to speak without it. The manager spoke to him quietly, and the supervisor nodded, then took a breath and straightened his jacket. Growth rarely looks graceful, It looks like a pause, a swallow, a small start again. A gentle movement ran through the cabin as the plane pushed back once more, this time without stopping. The engines hummed. The safety video played again in silence on a few screens, but people were calm now. The young woman squeezed Amina's hand for a second as if for luck. Amina squeezed back, then let go. She looked out the window as the runway opened like a long promise. She did not know yet if she would return to 2A before takeoff or after, but she knew the day was turning toward fairness. As the wheels began to roll, Amina thought of one more choice. She could turn this into a story about a bad person and a good person. That would be easy. But she wanted a better story, a story about a system that learns, a team that listens, and a traveler who holds on to kindness even when she has the right to be loud. She looked at Neha, at the purser, at the manager, and even at the supervisor, and she felt a quiet respect for each of them doing their part to move a heavy machine and many hearts in the right direction. The plane lifted. The city folded into small shapes below, then softened into a pattern of light and earth. In the climb, Amina felt her own heart rise. She closed her eyes for a moment and pictured a smooth path ahead. When she opened them, she saw the purser's calm face at the curtain, waiting for the bell that would let her walk the aisle. Amina smiled, not because everything was solved, but because people were trying in the light, and that was often how the best changes begin. The seat belt sign went off with a soft chime, and the cabin loosened like a tight knot easing. People stood to adjust bags. A baby laughed at the sound of the bell, as if it were made only for him. Amina stayed seated. She felt the plane steady itself in the high air, and she matched that steady feeling in her chest. She opened her book but did not read. She listened for footsteps from the front. Neha came through the curtain with quiet speed, the way a person moves when time matters but panic does not help. She crouched by Amina's row. "Ma'am," she whispered, "we have news from the ground. The error is real. It is a seat map issue. Your documents are correct. I have asked for permission to bring you back right now." Amina saw relief in Neha's eyes, and she also saw caution. News in the air needs care, like hot tea carried over carpet. The purser followed a moment later. She held a small printed slip and a pen. "Operations sent this," she said softly. "It confirms your booking in 2A. They ask us to log the steps we took and how we will fix the guest experience now." She looked toward the front. "There is one more part. Someone is in 2A. He boarded after you because of a system duplicate. He is resting. We can ask him to move to his correct seat, which is open in business class, but I want to do it in a way that does not embarrass anyone." The purser's words were gentle but exact. She was asking for permission without saying the word. Amina considered the picture, a stranger asleep in a seat that was not his, a team trying to balance fairness and kindness, a cabin full of people who did not need a show. She thought of how easily a good moment can turn hard when pride takes the microphone. "Do it the kind way," she said. "Please do not announce it. Please do not make him feel small. If it takes time, I can wait a bit longer." The purser nodded, as if a weight had shifted to the right place. Neha's eyes shone with respect. "Thank you," she said. "We will be careful." She moved away to prepare, but the aisle called her in another direction first. A water cup had tipped in row 24, and a thin stream ran toward the aisle. Amina reached into her tote, pulled out a tissue pack, and passed it across without a word. The older man who had spilled it smiled in thanks, the small kind that people remember longer than big speeches. The supervisor appeared at the curtain and paused. He looked like a person who had been told two different truths and was trying to hold them at the same time. He stepped down the aisle and stopped by the purser. His voice was low, but Amina caught the outline: "We should wait. Moving a guest mid-flight sets a precedent." The purser's answer was mild but clear: "The precedent is respect. We correct our own mistake with care." The supervisor did not argue. He pressed his lips, nodded once, and stayed at the front, as if guarding a door in his mind he was not ready to open. A gentle tremor rolled through the plane. The captain turned on the seat belt sign for a few minutes, just to be safe. Trays clicked closed, people settled. Amina felt the tremor too, then felt it fade. The young woman beside her took a slow breath, and Amina matched it, in and out, like two violins finding the same note. Through the window, the sky was pale and soft, and the wing tipped up against it like a calm hand. A message buzzed on Amina's phone. It was from Adil. Heard there was a seating mix-up. Kuwa where? I asked them to fix it by the book. No names. You okay? Amina read the words twice. She felt the care in them and also the boundary. She replied, I'm okay. The crew is kind. Please let them work. He sent back one word, always. It was not a promise of power. It was a promise of trust. When the sign went off again, the purser and Neha began a small, careful plan. The purser would speak to the guest in 2A quietly, while Neha prepared a welcome in business class for him with extra care warm towel, a seat already set, a drink he had asked for earlier. It would not feel like being pushed. It would feel like being moved with dignity. The purser touched her earpiece and checked with the galley. Timing matters in the air, a good move fits between the silent gears of service and safety. Before they could go forward, a small problem found them at row 23, a child had pressed the call button again and again, thinking it lit a star in the ceiling. The light chimed 3 times in a row. Some heads turned. The mother looked tired and a little embarrassed. Neha smiled and showed the child how to press the reading light instead. The child tapped it on and off with delight. The mother mouthed, "Thank you." The moment passed, soft as a cloud. The purser moved to the front. She leaned toward the man in 2A and spoke in a voice that did not carry. Amina did not watch. She looked at her hands, at the book, at the seat number label near the window. She gave the man his privacy. After a minute, the purser returned and gave a tiny nod to Neha. The plan had worked. The man in 2A had agreed to move to his correct seat without fuss. Neha slipped forward with a warm towel and led him down the aisle at a calm, easy pace. A few people glanced up, saw only good service, and looked away again. The supervisor watched, and a complicated feeling crossed his face. He looked at Amina. For a second, his eyes met hers, and there was something in them that was not defense anymore. It was thought. He came down the aisle to Amina's row. "Ma'am," he said quietly, I appreciate your patience. We had a process gap. We should not have moved you without proper verification. I stopped a check that would have cleared this sooner. I am sorry." The words were not perfect, but they were honest. Amina inclined her head. "Thank you for saying that," she said. "We all learn." A small cart rattled near the galley, and the purser lifted a hand to pause it. She did not want noise in this moment. She stepped to Amina's row and said, "We are ready to take you forward, if you are ready." Amina glanced at the young woman beside her, who had been bravely holding herself together since takeoff. The young woman's eyes shone. "I will be okay," she whispered. "You should go." Amina squeezed her hand. "You are already okay," she said. She stood, smoothed her kurta, and lifted her tote. But just then, the seat belt sign came on again. The captain's calm voice, "Ladies and gentlemen, a light patch of uneven air ahead. Please return to your seats and fasten seat belts." The purser gave Amina a small apology with her eyes. Amina sat again and buckled in. The plane shivered lightly, the way a road hums under a car on a bridge. It was not frightening. It was simply a reminder, the sky has its own plans. The short delay stretched into 5 minutes. A teacup on a tray quivered and settled. Amina's phone buzzed again. It was a message from her mother, sent earlier but arriving now, maybe delayed by the climb. Be patient. You always find the kind door. Amina smiled at the words. The right sentence at the right time can hold a person in place like a hand on the shoulder. When the sign went off, the purser returned with the same gentle purpose. Shall we? She asked. Amina nodded. Neha came from the other side to help with the tote, but Amina carried it herself. She did not want to look like a parade. She wanted to look like a person changing seats on an airplane, nothing more. They reached the curtain. The supervisor stood aside to make room. He met Amina's eyes again. Thank you, he said softly. It was not an excuse. It was gratitude that she had not made the sky heavier than it needed to be. Amina gave a small nod and followed the purser into the quiet light of the forward cabin. They stopped at the doorway to first class. The purser touched Amina's elbow. Before we seat you, she said, I would like to say something that matters. We will speak with you again after landing to document this properly. For now, I want you to know that Neha spoke up for you again and again. The station manager supported a fair check. We will give feedback to the gate team so this does not happen to someone else. Amina listened and felt a warmth in her chest that was not triumph. It was relief that learning was happening in the open, not behind closed doors. Then the purser paused, looked down the aisle, and stopped. In 2A, a young man had taken the seat just for a second to adjust a bag. The purser started to ask him to move, but Amina touched her hand lightly. Give him a moment, she said. The man finished, stood, and drifted away without noticing that he was part of a careful dance. The purser smiled at Amina's small patience inside the larger patience. They reached 2A. The seat was empty now, calm and neatly reset. A pair of slippers waited. A glass of water stood on the side table, catching light like a small clear bell. Amina did not sit at once. She looked at the seat and thought of the path between row 22 and here, and of the people who had made that path smooth, Neha with her gentle insistence, the purser with her steady hand, the station manager who had chosen the right standard, even the supervisor who had turned a corner in his mind. She felt grateful without needing a speech. Before she sat, Amina said, one more thing. When you speak to the team after landing, please make sure the notes say this was a process fix, not a person fix. If we make new steps, they should help the next guest even if no one is watching. The purser's face brightened. That is exactly what I hope to. Amina placed her tote under the footwell, set her book on the side, and finally sat down. The seat welcomed her like a soft, right answer. She breathed out and let the long muscles of her neck relax. For a moment, she closed her eyes and let quiet flow over her like warm light. When she opened them, Neha was there with a question in her eyes, not her mouth. Would you like tea? It asked without words. Amina smiled and said out loud, yes, please. Lemon and honey. As Neha moved away, the supervisor approached the purser at the galley. He spoke in a voice that Amina did not try to hear, but she caught a piece of it anyway. I should have checked the documents first. The purser replied, we all learn the same lesson, again and again, until it becomes habit. The supervisor nodded slowly. Learning is not a single moment. It is a quiet road you walk every day. A few minutes later, Neha returned with the tea and a small plate with 2 dates. She had noticed the little box in Amina's tote earlier and matched the gesture with her own. For a sweet start in the right seat, Neha said. Amina laughed softly. It is a good day, she said, and she meant it. Not because she had a big seat. Because a set of people had chosen fairness, and they had chosen it in a way that did not crush anyone else. The plane settled into its long, high rhythm. The captain shared the route in a calm update. Clouds drew a slow white line under the wing. Amina sipped her tea and sent Adil a final message, all fixed, kindly. Please thank no one by name. Let the process carry the thanks. He sent a heart. She put the phone away, leaned back, and let the seat support her. She thought of the young woman in row 22, the first-time flyer, and hoped the landing would feel easy to her. A cart rolled softly. Menus were offered. The purser stopped by 2A once more, just to check that Amina had everything she needed. "We will speak again later," she said. "Not for apology alone. For learning." Amina nodded. "That is the best part," she said. The purser smiled and moved on, greeting the next guest with the same light in her voice. All around, the cabin settled into the ordinary miracle of a safe flight, people eating, reading, dreaming, and trusting a team they could not see. In the quiet, Amina opened her book to the page with the small leaf. She read the sentence she had read twice without seeing and finally felt it land: "Kindness is not a soft choice, it is a strong one." She closed the book again and watched the sky. This, she thought, was the turning point, not the seat itself, not even the paper from operations, but the set of choices that turned a mistake into a better way of working. The day had changed shape, and it had changed for the better. Amina sat in 2A with her seat gently tilted back and a warm cup of lemon tea in her hands. The wing outside drew a clean line through the pale sky. The long work of the morning, the checks, the talk, the careful moving of people was behind her now. She felt the cabin grow calm, the way a lake settles after a small wind. Neha passed by with a soft smile, and the purser gave Amina a tiny nod from the galley as if to say, "We kept our word." Lunch service began. Amina chose a light meal and ate slowly, tasting each bite as if the food itself were part of the day's lesson to take things with care. Between courses, the captain came on the speaker and told them to expect a rough patch near a line of high clouds. "Please fasten your seat belts for a few minutes," he said in the calm voice that made everyone breathe easier. The sign lit up with a chime, trays clicked closed, the aisle cleared. The plane rolled through a few bumps, no more than a firm handshake with the air. Amina pressed her head to the seat and breathed out. When the bumps eased, the sign went off again. The purser reopened service and stepped to Amina's seat with a small printer slip. "Ma'am, operations has asked me to note your version of events for a follow-up," she said. "Not long, just what happened in your words." Amina nodded. She spoke in plain sentences. "I boarded with a first-class pass. I was moved without a document check. I showed proof." Neha tried to help. "The supervisor stopped the check. The station manager verified, and the crew corrected the mistake with care. The purser wrote exactly that." There was no blame in Amina's tone, only facts. "Thank you," the purser said. "This is clear and helpful." Neha came back with a quiet request of her own. "You brought dates," she said, almost shy. "Would you mind if we share them with the crew at break? It would be nice to pass the kindness on." Amina smiled. "Of course. Please do." Neha's eyes warmed. Small gifts travel well when carried by gentle hands. Just then, a chime sounded from the rear call button. A message reached the galley on a crew device. A passenger in row 22 felt faint and hot. The message included a note from another attendant: "First-time flyer, looks anxious." Neha looked toward the back and then to Amina, remembering the young woman who had sat beside her earlier. The purser gave Neha a nod. "Go," she said. "Take water and a cool cloth. I'll manage the front." Neha paused and turned back to Amina. "Would you be willing to share the breathing trick you showed her?" she asked, careful not to assume. "Only if the seat belt sign is off and you feel okay." Amina considered for a heartbeat. Her own comfort was finally restored, but she remembered the tremble in that young hand and the way fear fills the space behind the eyes. "Yes," she said. "If it is allowed, I'll come to the curtain. I can speak softly from there." The purser agreed. "We'll keep it simple and safe." They moved together, Neha down the aisle with water and a cool cloth, Amina to the curtain, the purser keeping the path clear. The supervisor saw them and did not block the way. He lifted a spare blanket from a bin and carried it himself toward row 22, as if his hands needed to learn a new habit too, help first. At row 22, the young woman sat with her head down and eyes wet. Her name tag, visible now, read Hira. Neha knelt to her level. Hira, it's okay, she said. You are safe. The air is higher here, sometimes the body feels strange. Here is cool water. Touch this cloth to your wrist. Amina stayed at the curtain and spoke in a voice that carried only a little. Hira, it's Amina, she said. I'm near the front. Do you remember the slow breath we practiced? In for 4, out for 6. We'll do it together, and we will count very softly. Hira lifted her eyes and gave a small nod. Together they breathed, in 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Neha matched the rhythm with her hand, a quiet metronome in the air. The supervisor stood one row back and handed the blanket to a seatmate who placed it over Hira's knees. Another attendant lowered the shade a little to soften the light. The aisle hushed, not from fear but from simple respect for a person trying to steady herself. After a minute, Hira's shoulders loosened. She sipped water. It feels better, she whispered. I thought I would fall. You won't, Amina said. You are sitting on a strong chair. The floor won't move under your feet. Your breath is a small boat, and it knows the way. Her words were plain, but they carried a picture that Hira could hold. They breathed a little more. Neha checked the pulse at Hira's wrist with gentle fingers and nodded to the purser, normal. The purser leaned toward the supervisor. Let's pause hot drinks in this section, she murmured. We don't need more movement right now. He agreed at once and spoke to the galley in a clear, steady voice. It was a short order, but it had the sound of someone choosing care over speed. The row settled. A father nearby offered a spare pack of tissues. The man across from Amina, who had earlier spoken up for fairness, gave Hira an encouraging smile. Soft community formed in the space of a few square feet. When Hira felt steady, Neha asked if she wanted to walk a few steps with support. Hira preferred to stay seated, so Neha showed her how to loosen and tighten the calf muscles to move blood without standing. Amina stayed a minute longer, counting 2 more slow breaths so Hira felt the rhythm in her own body. You can do this without me now, Amina said. You already are. Hira nodded, and the small brave smile returned to her face. Amina slipped back to the curtain. The purser touched her elbow. Thank you, she said. That was the right help at the right time. The supervisor stood there too. He looked at Amina with a face open in a new way. I learned something just now, he said. About the check we skipped earlier. About this. I thought control would keep us safe. But sometimes kindness does it faster. He did not dress it as a speech. He set it down like a simple truth he had picked up and wanted to keep. They returned to the front. In the galley, the purser tapped a message to operations, guest anxiety resolved on board through crew support, no medical diversion required. Operations replied with a short note of thanks and asked if the earlier seating confusion had been made right. The purser typed, resolved in flight, guest returned to book seat, pending report on process fix. She felt the shape of the day changing, as if the plane itself had adjusted to a better line in the air. The supervisor approached her with a suggestion. I would like to make a general apology for the boarding delay and offer a gesture, he said. Not about any single person. Just the delay and the return to gate. Miles or a meal voucher. The purser looked at him for a long second. She could see he was not trying to protect himself now. He was trying to protect the guests from a bad feeling. Yes, she said. Let's do it simple and clean. She radioed operations to confirm the offer. The answer came back, approved bonus miles for all guests, vouchers for those in rows affected by the move. The announcement was brief. The supervisor's voice did not shake. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience during our earlier delay and the short return to the gate. We know your time matters. As a token of appreciation, Falcon Air will add bonus miles to your accounts. Guests in the center cabin who experienced service changes will receive meal vouchers by email after landing. We're grateful you're flying with us today. There was no drama in it. No names, no hint of the earlier mistake. Just a clean line of respect. A few people tapped the armrests in small applause. Most simply settled deeper into their seats, the way people do when they feel seen. Back in first class, Amina sat with her tea and let the peace return. She felt no wish to be praised. She felt only glad that the team had chosen gentle answers that worked. Neha came with the small plate of dates again, this time split into tiny bowls for the crew. We saved 2 for you, she said, with a playful tilt of her head. Amina laughed. Only if you take one with me. They ate the sweet fruit together. It tasted like a shared lesson. A short while later, the purser returned with a slim folder. Inside was a simple form titled Guest Experience Record. I want to capture your suggestion for training, she said. You said earlier this was a process fix, not a person fix. Amina nodded and spoke slowly so the words would be easy to use later. First, always check documents before moving a seated guest. Second, give any crew member the right to escalate concern to the purser without fear. Third, add role play in training, not just rules, but how to speak with respect under time pressure. The purser wrote each line, neat and straight. This is clear, she said. It will help. The supervisor stepped in with a small envelope. This is a written apology from the station team for the confusion at the gate, he said. Inside is also a card noting Neha's actions for a service award. I will file it after landing, but I wanted you to know it exists. Amina looked to Neha. The attendant's eyes widened a little, then softened. She earned it, Amina said. Please also note the station manager's role. He asked the right question and set the right tone. The supervisor nodded. I will. A message blinked on Amina's phone. It was from Hira, sent through the airline's in-flight chat option that lets passengers thank crew or other guests by seat number. Thank you, Amina in 2A, it read. I did the breathing again. I can see the wing and it looks steady. I feel brave now. Amina smiled at the screen and wrote back, you are brave. Keep the count. Think of the landing and your sister's smile. The captain gave a soft update, smooth tailwinds, on-time arrival, a clear path into London. People relaxed into the quiet part of a long flight when the cabin becomes a small world of low voices, dimmed lights, and private thoughts. Amina looked out at the clouds and felt a steady joy, not loud, not bright, but deep. The day's high point was not the moment she sat in 2A again. The high point was the way many small, kind choices joined together and lifted the whole cabin, the way many hands lift a heavy table without straining one person alone. The purser passed once more and paused at Amina's seat. We will circle back after landing, she said. We want to make sure your report has every detail correct. Also, operations asked me to tell you something, they are reviewing the gate procedure this week. They will test a script that starts with let's verify with documents instead of please move. Amina's eyes warmed. Change did not need to wait for tomorrow. It could start at cruising altitude, written in a message and set in motion. As the lights dimmed for rest, Amina pulled the thin blanket over her lap and closed her eyes. She thought of Adil, of his quiet always, and of the way he let people do the right thing without pushing them. She thought of Neha's steady voice, the purser's clear eyes, the supervisor's new lesson, the station manager's right question, and Hira's brave breath. She let the images line up like small lamps along a path. Then she let sleep come, simple and clean. When she woke later, the cabin had the soft hush of mid-flight night. Stars lay outside like a scatter of salt. Amina poured a little more tea from the pot on her side table. She wrote one last note on her phone, to send after landing, to Falcon Air, "Thank you for your care today. Please turn this experience into a small training card crew can keep in a pocket." Title, check, then decide. Steps: 1. Verify with documents. 2. Listen to crew who raise concerns. 3. Correct with dignity. 4. Communicate honestly. She saved the note. It felt like a useful seed. The climax of the day was not a loud moment. It was a strong, quiet choice repeated by many people, to protect dignity, to move with care, to speak in clear words, and to let a system learn right away. The immediate result could be felt in the air itself: calm, trusting, human. Amina leaned back, the wing steady in her window, and let the smooth sound of the engines carry her the rest of the way. The captain announced the descent, and the cabin began to wake like a small town at sunrise. Shades lifted. People stretched and checked their phones. Hero looked back once toward the front and gave a shy wave. Amina returned the wave with a warm smile and pressed her seat upright. Neha came by with a final check and a soft, "All good." Amina nodded. "All good," she said. The purser stopped for a moment too. "After we park," she said, "would you be open to a short conversation with our duty manager? 10 minutes at most. Your clear notes can help us close the loop." Amina agreed. She wanted the fix to last beyond this flight. The wheels touched the runway with a clean, sure roll. A ripple of relieved breath moved through the cabin, the way people always breathe when ground returns. The plane slowed, turned, and glided to the gate. When the seatbelt sign went off, bags came down, jackets went on, and kindness showed itself in small ways. Someone waited so a parent could reach a diaper bag, a teenager stepped back to make space for an elder. Amina stayed seated until the aisle cleared. There was no rush. London would still be there. At the door, the purser introduced Amina to a woman in a navy blazer with a clipped badge that read "Duty Manager Arrivals." Her eyes were steady and kind. "Thank you for speaking with me," the manager said. "I'm here to listen and to learn. Would you like a quiet room, or we can stand here if you prefer?" Amina chose a small office just off the jet bridge. It held 2 chairs, a table, and a window with a view of the nose of the aircraft. The space was clean and simple, like a blank page. The manager listened as Amina spoke in order: the boarding, the move without a document check, the blocked verification, Neha's steady help, the station manager's good question, the in-flight correction, and the calm way the crew fixed the mistake. Amina's tone was even, she did not add heat. She gave times where she could. She repeated words that had mattered. "Please note this," she said gently. The problem began when the first team assumed instead of checking. The solution began when the second team checked instead of assuming. The manager wrote that down word for word. It was simple language that made a strong point. The manager asked, "Would you like an apology letter for your records?" Amina smiled. "Yes, but not for me to wave at anyone. It will help you train your people. Put the apology in your system and tie it to the new steps." The manager nodded. "We are already drafting a bulletin. Document first: do not move a seated guest without proof. We will pair it with an escalation path. Any crew member can call the purser directly. No one gets punished for raising a fairness concern." Amina felt a small lift in her chest. It was good to hear the words spoken as policy, not just promise. Neha and the supervisor came to the office door and waited. The manager invited them in. The supervisor looked humbled but present. He said, "I am sorry. I stopped a check I should have allowed. It was not fair to you." He did not rush the words. He let them sit. Amina thanked him for saying it. What matters now is what you do next, she said. Lead by example. When you are unsure, check. When someone brings proof, accept it. When a teammate speaks up for fairness, thank them. The supervisor nodded. I will. The manager added, he will be on a coaching plan. Not a punishment wall. A real plan with practice. Amina approved. Growth should be built, not shouted. Amina then asked for two things. Please recognize Neha for speaking up and caring for guests, she said. And please recognize the station manager who asked the right question, what step confirms her status with documents. Their actions made the day better for many, not just for me. The manager smiled. Already in motion, she said. She held up a small form that read immediate commendation. Neha's name was on it in crisp letters. Neha looked surprised, then grateful. Thank you, Neha said. I was only doing my job. Amina shook her head gently. You did more. You made the job kinder. The manager offered a car to town and a lounge pass for Amina's return trip. Amina thanked her and declined the car. I'm meeting a friend nearby, she said. A simple taxi is fine. As for the lounge pass, keep it for someone who needs a quiet space with a child. The manager noted the request and did not push. Respect is also knowing when to let a gift move in a different direction. Before she left the airport, Amina sent one more message to customer care, a short, clean summary and a training note titled Check, then Decide Pocket Card. She wrote 4 steps in simple words. 1. Verify with documents before moving a seated guest. 2. Listen to any crew member who raises a fairness concern. 3. Correct with dignity, no public calls, no shaming. 4. Communicate honestly about delay and offer a small gesture without naming names. She closed with one line, turn this into a habit, not a headline. That evening, seated at her friend's kitchen table with a cup of ginger tea, Amina told the story in brief. She did not mention names. She did not mention that Adil owned the airline through a holding company. Her friend asked, did you tell them? Amina shook her head. No. Power should serve quietly. If change comes only when you reveal who you are, it is not real change. It is a favor. I want a fix that works for anyone in a simple kurta, anyone with a dog-eared book. 2 days later, an internal memo went out at Falcon Air. The subject line read, New Guest Dignity Protocols effective immediately. It listed 3 clear changes. First, a document first rule, verify with system and proof before asking any seated guest to move. Second, an open escalation path, any crew member may speak directly to the purser or station manager if they see a fairness issue, no penalties for raising the flag. Third, role-play training, short, real-life scripts for speaking with respect under time pressure, including how to apologize cleanly and how to correct errors without making anyone feel small. The memo thanked an unnamed guest for clear notes and named 2 employees for commendation, Neha, for calm advocacy and care, and the station manager, for precise, respectful leadership. The memo reached Adil in his late afternoon board review. He read it with quiet pride, not because his name was anywhere on it, but because the values he and Amina believed in had moved onto paper and into practice. He forwarded the memo to the board with one line, this is what we mean by safety and dignity. He asked operations to track 2 simple numbers over the next 3 months, how often a seated guest is moved and how many times crew use the escalation path to correct a fairness issue. We measure what we value, he wrote, and we teach until it becomes habit. Hira posted a small note on a travel forum, I took my first flight. I got scared. A crew member and a passenger helped me breathe. We landed safe. Thank you to the kind people who didn't make me feel silly. The post did not go viral. It did not need to. It reached the right eyes. A trainee crew member read it and saved the breathing count to her phone. A gate agent read it and decided to ask for documents first the next time a profile looked unexpected. Small circles, steady ripples. A week later, Neha received a quiet ceremony in the crew room. There was a simple certificate, a handshake from the base manager, and a plate of sweets someone's auntie had made at home. The supervisor stood in the back, clapped with real feeling, and stayed after to thank Neha for teaching him a better way. He had started his coaching plan, shadowing a senior supervisor known for balanced judgment, practicing scripts where he led with verification and ended with dignity. He was not perfect yet. No one is. But his steps were firm and in the right direction. The station manager got a short note from headquarters, "Your question at the gate set the tone. Keep asking clear questions." He taped the note to the inside of his locker door. On hard days, good sentences help. A month passed. Amina booked another trip on Falcon Air, the same route, the same morning light on glass doors. She wore the same simple kurta and carried the same bent corner book. At the gate, a young agent scanned her pass and frowned for half a second. Amina watched the next step with interest. The agent did not ask her to step aside. She did not guess or gesture to economy. She opened her screen, checked the system, and said, "One moment, ma'am. I'm verifying something." She called the duty lead, a woman with calm eyes. Together, they checked the booking. The lead nodded. "All set. First class, seat 2A. Welcome aboard." The agent smiled, a little relieved, a little proud. "Welcome aboard," she repeated, more confident now that the process had taught her hand and voice what to do. On board, Amina found Neha again, now wearing a small silver pin that marked her as a mentoring lead. They laughed softly at the coincidence of paths crossing in the sky. "Training is different now," Neha said later, pouring tea. "We practice the words. We practice the pauses. We practice the look that says, 'I am here to help you, not to move you away.' It makes the day run smoother." Amina tasted the tea and thought how change often tastes like this, warm, steady, and a little sweet. Halfway through the flight, Amina saw the supervisor from the first journey. He was guiding a new hire through a boarding report. He said, "Document first. Always. If you're unsure, ask. If a guest has proof, accept it. And if a teammate says, 'Please check again,' you thank them." He did not see Amina watching. He did not need to. His voice already belonged to the better habit. News of the internal changes did not appear in bright headlines. No cameras waited at gates. The work showed up in small places, a line moved without friction, a guest felt respected, a crew member spoke up and was praised for it, not punished. The best change is like good lighting, it lets everyone see clearly and do their work with grace. One evening at home, Amina sat with Adil on their balcony. The city was soft and silver under a thin moon. Adil said, "I read the monthly report. Fewer seat moves. More early escalations, handled well. Complaints down. Compliments up." He smiled. "No one knows the story behind the data." Amina squeezed his hand. "They don't need to. The system knows. The people feel it." He looked at her for a long moment and said, "Thank you for choosing the kind door." She answered, "Thank you for holding it open without saying your name." A few months later, Falcon Air added a small card to every crew pouch. On one side, a checklist for safety. On the other side, 4 lines in clear print: check, then decide. Verify with documents. Listen to concerns. Correct with dignity. Communicate honestly. The card was simple enough to remember and strong enough to guide a busy day. A new hire tucked it behind her ID and touched it with her thumb before each shift, the way some people touch a charm. It kept her steady when the airport rushed and voices grew sharp. Amina kept traveling in her simple clothes with her simple tote and her simple book. She did not change how she walked because of her husband's title. She did not carry a name like a key to cut lines. She kept her small habits: arrive early, thank the crew, share dates when it felt right, and look for the person who needed a calm voice. Sometimes that person was a child. Sometimes it was a tired parent. Sometimes it was a supervisor learning a new way. The work of kindness, she knew, is never done. It is a practice, like safety, like good flying, like landing gently even on a windy day. The last image of this story is quiet. It is a bright gate in the early morning. It is the soft beep of a scanner and a careful look at a screen. It is a smile that follows the check, not the other way around. It is a woman in a simple kurta walking down a jet bridge without fuss, taking her place like anyone else, and an airline that shows its strength not in loud promises but in the calm of habits done right. The lesson is simple too: real power is used to make things fair for everyone, and real kindness is a strong choice you make again and again until it becomes who you are.